Ever notice how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with? That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. I absolutely appreciate it here Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time, 9 to noon Eastern time, Standard Time. Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. And I absolutely appreciate it. Lots of stuff to cover today. Everybody concerned, I think most people are at least, about North Korea. What is going to happen there? The president of North Korea has at least said that he's going to, he's nutty. I'll just say that. He's nutty. I have with me Ambassador John Bolton, diplomat and lawyer, who served as the U.S. permanent representative to the UN, United Nations, and as an Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security. He's also a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And I just want to talk to him for a few minutes, get an update on North Korea. Ambassador Bolton, welcome to the show, sir.
Well, glad to be with you. Thank you very much for having me.
It is absolutely an honor to have you here. Thank you for your time.
Oh, glad to do it.
North Korea, can you update us about what's going on? Is there anything that we should be worried about? What is that situation at this moment?
Well, I think it is a situation to be worried about. You've got a very belligerent regime that has exploded 3 nuclear devices, including last month, 6 weeks ago. The third one put a payload into Earth orbit in December, showing their ballistic missile program is making progress. And they've got a history of unprovoked attacks against South Korea as recently as 3 years ago. So the risk of miscalculation is high, and the risk of an incident escalating, I think, is something to be concerned about. But even beyond the immediate crisis, we've got a real problem with this dictatorial regime. It's running a 23 million person prison camp in North Korea. In effect, its people perennially on the verge of starvation. That's a threat in Northeast Asia, a threat to South Korea, to Japan, to American deployed forces there. And it's a threat worldwide, too. It's cooperated with Iran on ballistic missile development, quite possibly on the nuclear weapons side as well. And being a desperately poor country, it'll sell anything to anybody for hard currency.
Yeah.
So we've had successive administrations, Republican and Democrat alike, over 20 years that have not dealt with the problem effectively, and that's really why we are where we are now.
Is that because they don't really believe that North Korea will and can or are capable of doing anything, or they don't know
I think
what
for
to
many,
do?
Yeah, for many years in the Clinton administration, the Bush administration, and now under Obama, people have believed we could negotiate North Korea out of its nuclear weapons program. I think that was a fool's errand from the beginning. This is an element of regime survival for the North Koreans. They're not going to be talked out of it, at least not at any price that any sensible American leader ought to be willing to pay. But all these years, negotiations have dragged on. The North Koreans make commitments. We supply economic aid. The North Koreans violate the commitments. Then we negotiate again. All the time that's going on, the regime in North Korea has been making progress on its nuclear weapons and ballistic missile development. So they have used negotiations to their advantage. And I might say, just to shift to the Middle East for a minute, that's exactly what Iran has done over the past 10 or 15 years as well.
Yeah.
And as we watch, you're quite right, we're all concerned about what's happening with North Korea. One of the countries that's watching it most closely of all is Iran, because if North Korea succeeds yet again in bluffing the West, the Iranians are going to take due note of that.
I've noticed that our enemies around the world seem to be more emboldened than under President Barack Obama than any other president. Is that because when he first became president, he went around the world apologizing to our enemies for being so strong?
Well, I think a lot of people saw that pattern of behavior, but I think it goes to a very fundamental philosophical belief that I think the president has, and he just thinks America's too strong, that we're too powerful, and that redistributing, spreading the power around a little bit would not be a bad thing. The problem with that analysis is that it just it conflicts with reality. Whatever peace and stability there is in the world, and there's certainly not a lot of it, it's because of American strength, because of our system of alliances, because it's important to us to have as stable a world as we can get for the globalized economy that we live in. And as America retreats, as America pulls back, that stability isn't automatic. And I think we can see now why Japan, South Korea, other countries in Asia are so concerned about North Korea, about China, about a whole range of developments as they see a declining American presence, and they get very worried about it.
How would you personally, I mean, you're a very smart man. I've watched you over the years, and I admire your intellect. How would you rate the way, if you had to give it a grade, F to A, what would you give President Obama in the way that he's dealing with this situation and others?
Well, I think we're flunking. I think America is growing more insecure around the world, more insecure from the threat of nuclear proliferation, from the threat of terrorists, from aggressive, almost belligerent policies by Russia and China. In this hemisphere, you've got Chavez before he died and his efforts to destabilize democracy in Latin America. You've got the spread of terrorist groups in northern Africa, and spreading in places like Nigeria and Mali, really all across the continent. And I think we are seen as not being as important as we once were, not being as effective as we once were, with our declining defense budget, not having the capabilities that we once did. And, the president is so focused on domestic issues, so focused on remaking America along the lines he wants, he just simply doesn't pay enough attention to national security issues. Republicans are to blame too. I think they ought to be talking a lot more about this. But I tell you, just because we don't debate national security enough in the United States doesn't mean that our adversaries are going to be gracious enough to let us get our economic house in order. They see weakness and inattention, and they're going to take advantage of it.
I am 63 years old, and I've never been as concerned and worried about my country, the situation, as I am today. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. It's hard for me to believe, Ambassador, that we can be destroyed from within in a manner and at such a fast pace that is happening now.
Well, it certainly is very, very troubling. I agree with you, but there's always a solution. I don't think this trend is irreversible. I mean, we're all now mourning the death of Margaret Thatcher. When she became Prime Minister of Great Britain in 1979, a lot of people thought Great Britain had gone into irreversible decline, and by the force of her leadership, that was turned around. But the fact is, the digger the hole we dig for ourselves, obviously, the harder it is to get out on the other side, and the more missed opportunities we'll have, and the greater the risk that some country like Iran or North Korea will miscalculate and try and take advantage of our weakness. It's not American strength that's provocative, really. It's American weakness that's provocative.
Yeah.
And I think that's in part what we're seeing playing out now in the Korean Peninsula.
What are my final question for you, sir? What are the chances that the leader of North Korea will fire a missile this weekend or anytime soon?
Well, I think there's a good chance he's going to test this missile. I honestly don't think they want to fire it and hit a civilian target and start hostilities, but I wouldn't vouch for the guidance systems on any North Korean missile. They could aim it at a spot 100 miles east of Tokyo, and the thing could still hit Tokyo. That's why this is so serious. It's why we and South Korea have put Aegis missile defense-equipped destroyers into the waters around Korea. It's why the Japanese have put Patriot anti-missile batteries around Tokyo. and it's why the risk of miscalculation is so high here.
Amazing. Is there anything we, the people, should be doing or can do at this point?
Well, I think we've just got to be, as citizens of this country, we've just got to be more insistent that our leaders pay attention to national security issues. The politicians will tell you the American people don't care about national security. I think that's dead wrong. I think the American people expect their government to defend them internationally.
Yeah.
And they've counted on it for a long time. They can't count on it now. It's time to speak up.
I really respect you, sir, and I
Well, thank you. Very kind to say that.
Yeah, I appreciate your love for the country and your honesty. I think you're one of the most honest men on this side of heaven, and I appreciate that.
Well, you're very kind to say that. Thanks again for having me.
All right, so God bless you.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Ambassador John Bolton. Back in a moment, folks.
Maybe surrounded by